Hey guys, this is Amanda. It is 5:24, Thursday, June 11th. And I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about the child welfare system, the Child Protective Services and foster care system. It is a system. The child foster care system goes hand in hand with the Child Protective Services system. They're both two entities that work together. And I want to use three terms. I'm going to use straw man. I'm going to use de facto and de jure. And I'm going to talk about how I'm going to come from an angle of a person or people, a group of people, okay, a generations, or whoever has went through CPS cases. And I've come across this a lot when I have just basic conversations with people and ask them questions. Well, what was your experience like going through a Child Protective Services case? And the response from about 99.999% of people is that, in my perception, is that they were lied to, they were brainwashed, they were programmed, they were given false hope, they were, ran around. They were ran around and made to do things in the foster care system and the Child Protective Services system that not even those systems would do or have to be involved in. Now, so picture a child gets taken into custody. And you are signed up, you sign papers and are propped. You're propped and signed into programs. You start program dates. You start a counselor or a Child Protective Services worker requires you counseling so many weeks. They give you a whole list of things that they require as you're going through reunification services. That's what reunification services are. The Child Protective Services offers you reunification services. And these things that they expect you to complete as you move along in your reunification services. So now we have parents that are going through these, and also they are required to be propped into some sort of drug court if they find the Child Protective Services find that you have ever in your entire life consumed drugs or alcohol. Okay? So if you are honest, you think, I'm going to be so honest, and it was like 28, 30 years ago, or it was 10 years ago, and I had, I got married, I had kids, I started a life, and little Jimmy, went to school and said that his brother banged him on the leg, and then but the big brother said, don't tell the parents. But little Jimmy was so sad and wanted to reach out to somebody, and then little Jimmy went to school and said his mommy did it. Okay, and then the Child Protective Services show up at the house, and now starts your battle. So now you go through all these things. They sign you up, they remove your children from the home. They might make an arrest report, you get arrested, and the nightmare begins. I've heard so many things from different people that have experienced this. And so what happens is that as you go along your Child Protective Services reunification services, and you have supervised visitations or you have unsupervised visitations, Children, depending on the age of your children, or if you are very receptive to your older children, your children might not even be full time in the house of the straw man. Now, the straw man is something that goes on your paperwork packet. It says that your children, the social services worker says that your child is full time in the custody and the home of the straw man name, which is, Flora and, uh, uh, whatever. They're the good, loving, wise, all caring foster parents, and they are feeding your children five to six times a day. They're picking your kids up on time. They are, they are taking swimming lessons. They are being, they have this full, fruitful, loving life with Flora and Franny or whoever, and they are the straw man name. Now, when your kids show up, because you are instructed by the social services worker not to talk about your case and not to talk about your case in front of your children, and they monitor you very closely to make sure that your children aren't they aren't expressing or explaining to you where they've actually been. So when you sit there at a visitation and you say, well, what did you eat for breakfast? And they come up with something completely extravagant. I had, quiche, and I had hot cake, waffles and quiche with fresh fruits and orange juice and milk and, only marshmallows for my cereal and all these things. You're like, wow, the straw man's doing great. The foster parents are doing wonderful. As you're going through all these, let's use it. Let's de jure, right? You think it's all authorized and legal and it's being written down in the foster home, but it's really de facto. What you don't understand is the de facto of what's actually happening. You don't understand that your child didn't eat before they came to a visitation. So what is happening is that, and the CPS the Child Protective Services don't want parents to know this, is that they are being, that house, that address that might be listed on your case packet, or that straw man name, is not actually where your kids are at. They're not actually there full time. Because what your paperwork says and what your social services worker says is that, well, it's for 6 months, right? So your kids, what's happening with your children is that they're being like ran around. That's not the correct word, right? They are being sent around to different places and people. And especially if you are telling the social services worker that there's no one that could adopt your kids. Now they kick into gear and they start going in a different direction. So your kids are staying the night over at, Farmer Jones's house. They come over there for a weekend. The CPS worker drops them off. And then then they come to visitation. How's the foster parents? See, in your child's mind, he or she or they think all those people are their foster parents. They don't know what was written on your case packet was one or two names that they try to make as a couple or as one responsible person. That's the straw man name. So when you say, how's your foster parents? What'd you eat last night? The questions you should be asking your kids are, which foster home parents did you stay the night with? How was it when, oh really? You stayed the night? How was it? Did you have a good time? These are straw man. These are like de jure. It's really, actually, it's illegal. It's kind of de jure, but it's not. Like, it's not transparent with actual biological parents on what is happening with their children. Your child might come into a visitation and say, they start talking Spanish. And you're like, what? What? They might start talking Russian. You're like, huh? They might start talking, some language you never heard before, or responding to Spanish from some woman, or now they bring in someone doing sign language, and you're like, huh? Last time I knew the foster parents didn't do sign language and they didn't speak Spanish. But you're just so in the moment of your social services reunification program and your visitation, and you're just so overwhelmed that sometimes that stuff just flies by you, and you've been so programmed to believe that you're just a nonsense, no good parent, that you don't understand that your kids are being trafficked right under your nose with a strawman foster parent name on your case packet. Your kids are already being, let's just say, felt out. And when this happens, it starts to get dangerous for your children and for you. Because when this happens, they start to, the Child Protective Services takes the next steps. Especially if they tell you that they string you along saying that the straw man foster parents home is they're in it for the long haul. They're looking to adopt. They're going to adopt your kids. Okay, but then the kids are constantly, they have their own things they talk about, the Child Protective Services, their own forms they're filling out with foster parents, with straw mans, okay? And they're doing their own program. There's someone else, and you're over here just like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get all my stuff done, right? So they're trafficking your kids. They're filling out more forms. They're pinging for other homes and parents for your children. And you're just sitting there, where the innocent parents are sitting there thinking, I'm going to get my kids back. While the Child Protective Services and the foster parent services are contrary to one another. They're running two different paradoxes right underneath your nose. And at any given day, the straw man foster couple, dad, mother, can call up the CPS worker, the social worker, and say, I'm just not feeling this today. Me and Claudio had an argument, and the kids just need to be removed for the safety of the kids. But don't continue on with any paperwork. We just need a break. What kind of services do you offer for that? And then those kids get transported somewhere else. It might be for the weekend. It might be for the week. While they go and be like, oh, I'm learning how to be a foster parent. I'm sure they have paperwork and things for that too. Meanwhile, your children are at risk. You don't know where they're at. Cops don't know where they're at. People don't know where they're at. They're being